The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to connect with our affiliate sponsor, GSM Growth Agency. They're boosting e-commerce businesses to 6 and 7 figures in revenue and cover everything from ads and social media influencers to making your website better. GSM Growth Agency focuses on taking businesses from startup success to bigger success, going above and beyond to make sure growth sticks around. They're all about cool ideas, lasting partnerships, and making your mark in the e-commerce world. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services.
We have to remember that as we discussed, people don't realize they're building equity in this thing. And then they another mistake that they make within that is that they automatically think that one day they're going to put their business up for sale and someone's going to come along and write a check and they're out. That ain't how it works.
Right.
You're going to, look with I'll tell you, when I sold my company, the deal was, and I got lucky. I mean, everything just really worked out. But we had two parts to it. They paid me, we had a figure, right? A bottom line figure. They paid me 90% of that figure. Then there was a stipulation that said, I will get that remaining 10% in 6 months if we don't lose too many of my clients.
Right. It's a retention-based.
Exactly
holdback.
right.
Sure.
And so that motivated me to sure as hell did, by the way, to maintain contact, help them with the clients, everything else. And so you're going to have different ways of getting out of this. And by the way, you have to think about, well, who might buy this business? Is it going to be my employees? Will it be an outside person? Is it going to go to a family? Then you have to start thinking about the tax ramifications, the exposure to legal issues, like I'm sure you've seen a few thousand times. So selling your business just ain't writing a check and walking out the door.
No. Okay, I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of the podcast. If you are listening on your favorite directory, please leave us a 5-star review when you can. And if you're watching our beautiful faces on YouTube, you can, subscribe, like us, all those types of things. So we can keep bringing the quality guests that we have on today. You'll meet Ryan in a minute. So let's get on with the show.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode.
Hi, this is Ryan Urban. I'm author of the book, The Business Owner's Guide to Money, and the host of the podcast by the same name. I'm really excited to be here, and we're looking forward to talking about the 7 biggest mistakes that business owners make.
All right, Ryan. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Where are you located? I forgot to ask.
We just moved from Colorado Springs last year to the Carolina Shores.
There you go. I got a lot of friends. People who live in Jersey, they're going to Charlotte, and they're going to South Carolina, Hilton Head, and it's just got so expensive in the Northeast. Nobody, and a lot of the remote working, they don't have to be here. So
no, we have a lot of New Jersey transplants here, a lot of them. More, in fact, I hear a New Jersey accent more than I hear a Carolina accent out here.
I'm sure, right? Because it's changing so much. So it's funny when you live wherever you live, it doesn't sound like you have an accent, right? Until you go somewhere else, and then you realize that you do. So, but I appreciate coming on. I know I don't have a lot of financial advisors come on the show because and we're not really going to talk about necessarily that today. We're going to talk about the business stuff, but a lot of them aren't independent. You're an RIA and so forth. They have a lot of compliance issues with coming on the show because their compliance people think they're going to say something that's promissory or, things like that. So I don't think we'll run into that today, but I know you've been in the business about 20 years. But you must have had a career before that. So since this is an entrepreneurial podcast, maybe you want to give us a little bit of background on yourself and how your career there, and then how you made the switch to the financial advisement. We'll talk about your book, your podcast, and the whole thing. I love other podcasters.
Great. Good. Well, I've actually had two careers. The first one, my degree is in broadcasting, and I was in radio for about 20 years. And I spent much of that time hosting morning shows where you're getting up at 3:30 in the morning to be funny at 5:30. And that wears on
like the morning zoo, right? Like it's the morning zoo with Ryan Urban.
Just like that. And so it was weird because I always kind of felt like I was just doing that until I figured out what I wanted to do when I grew up. And one day I was doing an appearance, where you show up somewhere and they pay you to shake hands or whatever. And I will never forget. I was sitting in my car at a 7-Eleven in Santa Cruz, California, and I was thinking to myself, this is not what I want to do. What would really excite me? And I already knew the answer, and that was finance, because I like to invest and et cetera. And I thought to myself, man, I'm going to have to do testing and get this credential and that credential. And I thought, well, the time's going to go by anyway. So do it, and everything changed. I long story short, I became a financial advisor. I did that for about 20 years. And then one day last year in July, out of the blue, the phone rang. And, we talk about exit planning for businesses. Well, the phone rang out of nowhere, and it was a competitor, a group who wanted to merge. And I said, I'm not really interested, but I'm actually probably closer to retiring. And they said, oh, well, that could work too. So October 31st, we closed, and the numbers look great. And so we moved out here to.
So it's a year coming up next week.
That's exactly, In fact, so is my contract because. The part of the buyout was that I would work, I would be available to them for a year. And so we sold the house in Colorado Springs and moved out here to the Carolina shores. And I'm nowhere near being able to retire. I don't know what I would do if I were to retire. So I started doing just consulting, financial consulting and hourly fee basis only. So it's very low key, as needed, if needed, that kind of thing.
You're not even selling products anymore. You're just you don't have anything parked with their broker deal or anything like that. You're just doing advice-based stuff and writing books, right? We're going to talk about your book in a bit. And you still do the podcast.
Still do the podcast. Right? And so I'm keeping my foot firmly still in the business.
Yeah, broadcasting. Absolutely. Well, I'm like big. So the funny thing was about 4.5 years. So when I got started in podcasting, I was always, consuming podcasts. I don't really listen to the radio. I'm just always listening to podcasts, things, a lot of historical stuff, things on NPR, stuff like that. Some series that I find or whatever. My son's always finding cool stuff to listen to. So, and when I used to be in the car more, I would listen even more. But then one day, I have to produce content for my practice, right? Everybody's got to do content marketing. And I think I watched like a video from Pat Flynn or something like that, where it said, you can start a podcast for $75. And I was like, you can do that? Like, don't I need like a sound guy and a studio? So I bought and it was crap. Like in the early days, you could listen to the first few episodes. It sounds terrible. I figured out how to clean it up through some filters. So we had a really cheap equipment. And this stuff is, it's an 8 Audio Technica mic, headphones. I got a small mixing board over here. It's maybe $500 or $600, but then it was $75. So we got started and I realized that we could produce content eventually the we just became me. And I've enjoyed it along the way because I've met 300 or 400 different people from around the world and able to connect with them now through this studio and Zoom. Before the pandemic, I was doing it in my office, right? We had two of the, what are these called? Like these boom mics or whatever on opposite ends of the table. And the guy would sit there. I didn't have any video and we would talk. And then when the pandemic hit, I was like, wow, we can like capture this video. And then people would write me and say, hey, can we use my video? I'm like, we didn't have video. You were in my office. What are you talking about? Oh, yeah. I was wondering how you did that. Yeah. You know, so I don't want to be somewhere I got to have 4 or 5 cameras, but I love to meet people that have been, you know, in the voice business because that's really what you were, right? It was no video. It was audio. It was radio, right? Yeah. To see what a career. But I guess you're right. You started out thinking, oh, I'll do this for a while and figure out what I'm going to do. And then how many years later?
About 20 years.
Like, so 20 years later, you're still practicing, deciding what you're gonna do. But I guess you've enjoyed being a financial advisor, like you found it fulfilling, and all the people you've helped over the years.
Well, no doubt. And the thing was that one of the things I had to be able to do when I left radio was I wanted it to be something that I wanted to do, even though I wasn't at work. Does that make sense? And I'm addicted to doing financial research and checking stocks and funds and everything else. And so why completely leave it? You know, it's fun. And I it's weird to say it's fun. And I've become a real geek because of it, you know, but I love it.
Well, I don't think you can really be that effective for your clients if you're not a student of the business. You know, I mean, there are people I know, unfortunately, they're just selling stuff and they're with one of the big wirehouses and they're getting pushed to do this or that. But if you really want to be a quality guy over time and bring value to people that you meet along the way, you got to be just like in law, you know, you have to be a student of what you do because they're relying on you for, you know, to be their personal analyst, to give them, you know, advice, knowing that you're not guaranteeing anything, but, you know, to hopefully you have some intelligence in your head and you know what you're looking at, understand the markets.
Well, in basketball, they call it being a gym rat. In other words, you're just constantly in it, you know, and you either are or you aren't. I don't know if that's something you can fake, you know.
I know we're getting a little bit off the track, but any thoughts about like where we are economically? You read a lot about, you know, we're in a really weird economic time where the markets are like responding backwards and the real estate market's going up, but interest rates are rising and it's just crazy. You have any thoughts?
As I look at where we are right now, I'm almost, I don't know if you've heard anyone else say this. I think we're almost at a point now after 15 years after the meltdown of being back to close to normal. And in other words, if you look at, for example, a 10-year bond, right when the crash hit in 2008, it's right about where it is now.
We're back there.
You could get a money market fund for 5% back then. So it's actually possible that once we get through this weirdness, we took a real shock to the system. And I don't think a lot of people fully understood that. We just about didn't survive September 2008. Interest rates are okay where they are right now. And it wouldn't be bad if we stuck here for a while.
Yeah, historically. The weird thing is that you're really waiting for the real estate market to deflate and there's no supply. Right. So it just economics. I don't care what the interest rates are. It keeps people from selling their house because they're like, well, where am I going to go? And then building is way down, now, at least in our area. You see, I mean, we used to have builders popping houses up all over the place. You don't really see as much as you used to. So I don't know. Just like in 2008, something's going to crack and there'll be another adjustment. So, all right. So let's get into, because I have to confess that, and shameless plug, I'm also an author. My book is a 10 Ways book. So my book is called, I think I might have it here. It's called 10 Ways to, let me see. Do I have the book cover? No, I can't. I don't see it. Okay. My book is called 10 Ways to, 10 Ways to Get Sued by Anyone and Everyone.
Got it.
Small business owner guide to staying out of court, to doing the things, following a business plan, doing things in writing, make sure things are tied up with your partner. Don't, be careful with your employees, make sure you have proper insurance. I interviewed a lot of attorneys for the book. It's only like 120 pages or whatever. But I like your book because your book is 7.
Well,
things.
The book is called The Business Owner's Guide to Money, but I've been doing the 7 biggest mistakes business owners make. Really is simply just from experience, and and you see the same things over and over again.
Over and over,
and it begins to really sink in. So I just thought I would spit them out all at one time and offer this. So,
all right. So, and they're not all financial, right?
Well, they're all business related, but they're not all financial.
Of course. Right. Well, I think there's a little bit of a gap when it comes to financial planning in the world, right? Most financial planners are doing personal financial planning for individuals, families, and things like that. They're not really doing business financial planning, and it's a different world. It's more, P&L and, stuff like that, and maybe employee benefits and all kinds of things you do with your partners and succession planning and, that type of stuff. So maybe you want to highlight the book, or let's have a conversation about things that business owners should know that you find that they do wrong.
And by the way, a business owner has really a very difficult set of circumstances, because people who have, for example, a 401k, you can extrapolate out what that thing is going to look like in X years and Social Security and all this other thing. But with a business, for many people, that's going to be their nest egg. And a lot of them don't know. Yeah. And I'll bet you've seen this a lot too, Mitchell. And that is, they don't realize that they're building equity. Like you're
right. They don't even look at it that way until it's too late. They got to do it early on.
Exactly right. Okay. So number one, the number one thing I want to bring up is they don't, whether they're an existing business or just planning a new business, they don't maintain a current business plan. And here's the issue with that. A business plan, for the most part, it's nice and pretty. It has cool graphs and numbers and all this. But the issue with a business plan, and by the way, full disclosure, I don't write business plans. So this is not a commercial for what I do.
Yeah, I don't either. Even though people it's a big part of my book too, by the way.
Good. So, well, and it's my opinion that a business owner has to write it himself. And the reason for this is, once it's written, it has value, but it's the writing of the plan that has the value. And why is that? Well, you have to look at your industry. You have to look at your competition. You have to look at your cost. You have to look at marketing. You have to look at all these different things, and it forces you to look at it. And I'll tell you, if you have not yet started the business and you write this business plan, you may find it ain't going to work. And I would rather have you, I would much rather have you discover that before you've maxed out your credit cards. All right. Yeah. And if you're an ongoing business, well, then it's good to refresh. You still have to know what your competition is doing.
It's a working
marketing changes.
Yeah. You know what? Good ideas are not necessarily good businesses.
Yes.
I was just talking to somebody about that today. We were in a networking group, and she's one of the people in the group also does sewing as a hobby, quilting, things like that. And she makes these bags for people and is starting to sell them, whatever, but it's still a craft hobby. So we were talking about the cost of, creating one of these things and your time and so forth. And somebody did bring up the point and said, well, if you're charging, let's say $50 for a bag and it costs you $15 to make, and then you have so many hours into it and you're only making $8 an hour, you might still not be able to charge $50 because nobody will pay $50 for the bag. So therefore, you're going to be underwater with every product that you put out. And you have to go through those exercises to see those, and maybe it is surmountable. Maybe you can offshore the product. Maybe there's ways to do it less expensively. But like you said, right? Those are very expensive lessons that people learn when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I always feel that there's like 4 major, business plans are like 8 to 10 to 12 sections usually. If you look at, I usually look at like there's 4 major categories. If you can deal with the 4 first to start, at least we're on the road, right? There's like your product or service. There's your people, because it might not just be you. There may be things that you shouldn't be doing. There's definitely the marketplace, marketing, competition, how you're going to market, all that kind of stuff. And then obviously the financials. What is your actual cost of doing business? Not just your cost of goods sold. There's more than that, right? Now you get involved with this, you got to have warranties, and you need an attorney, and you got to get insurance. And they don't think about this kind of stuff. But Ryan, I can't tell you how many business owners call me and say, Mitch, I need your help. Remember that business that I opened 4 months ago? Yeah, we need to shut it down. I'm like, didn't you just like sign a lease for 5 years? So I got to negotiate them out of the lease, I got to negotiate them out of maybe equipment leases, whatever, to clean up and mitigate their losses. And my first question is always, well, can I see a copy of your business plan? And it's like crickets.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no, business plan. Like what? So so that's so I'll let you comment.
Well, I'm always begging people to learn Microsoft Excel because you have to run the numbers, and if you don't, you have to do the research to run the numbers. You have to find out what these costs are. You just listed off 6, 7, 8 different costs, and that was off the top of your head. And, so that absolutely has to be done. And again, it can be done even if you're in an ongoing concern because things change, situations change.
Right. And you need to know exactly if you're, what was a good example? I had a woman on my podcast. She has a commercial cleaning company, right? Very successful. She knows exactly how many more customers she brings on before she hires a new crew, because she knows how much the crew costs and how many jobs they can take on and so forth. And the people that really know their numbers, they're the ones that really can deal with, because life's not a straight line, right? Nothing happens that way. That's not the way financial planning works. And you got to deal with those. So if you know your numbers, as soon as they change, you can say, well, I know that this costs me this. We can adjust this. We can do that. And people just don't. They're accidental entrepreneurs. That's the problem.
Please do that. Yeah. Number 2 is actually related to that. And that is they don't build out their business owner's skill set. Now, what I mean here is you may be the world's best plumber or florist or chiropractor. That does not mean you're going to be good at being a business owner. And so business owning means things like having communication skills, detail skills, number skills, creative. You have to be curious. If you're going to be a good business owner, you have to have your temperament in check. You have to be
leadership.
You have to be able to speak bookkeeping a little bit. Yeah. And so therefore when I say build out, that doesn't necessarily mean go to school, but it does mean to be able to plug into services and processes that you can farm out. Okay. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind too, as you're putting this together, that where are my weak points? It's okay if you have them. We all do. But if they're important to the business, you better have a plan.
Yeah. Well, just because you get out of dental school or you come out of chiropractic school or another profession doesn't mean that you're equipped to start your own practice. Right. But you can be. Right. It's just that don't kid yourself to think that you are when you haven't gotten any training for it. I don't teach you that stuff.
Number 3 is they don't lean on their business reports. And this is things like your balance sheet and your cash flow statement and your income statement. Now, this is similar to the business plan, Mitchell, in that a lot of people will print this thing out, they'll glance at it, and where does it go? In the drawer or whatever. No, what you need to do is if you're printing these out once a week or once a month or once a quarter, to me, when I look at one of these, and I'll bet to you too, when I look at an income statement, I see a bunch of questions. How am I optimizing every line item on this sheet? Or am I? And that gives you an opportunity. What are my costs like? What can I do about that? What's my insurance cost right now? What's this? What's that? Right. And so every time you print this out, it's an opportunity. And if you have a key person, and we're going to talk about that, but if you have a key person with whom you can discuss this, that's when you sit down and say, are we optimizing all these numbers?
Right. Yeah. I think when you do a P&L, things always jump out where you're like, what is that figure?
Right.
How come that's so high? And sometimes things are miscategorized. Sometimes they're just like, well, why did it cost us that much to do this? Is there a better way to do it? But if you stick your head in the sand, you don't look at your numbers. I don't know what your thoughts are about it, but I think people are afraid sometimes psychologically to look at their numbers. They think, well, the revenue won't be high enough. The expenses are going to be too bad. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. It's going to be a mess. They shy away from it, which doesn't help.
Well, it's the same reason that I have so much trouble getting people to do a budget, because they just don't want to see it. And I get it, but you're hurting yourself. You're hamstringing yourself if you don't do it,
Right. Okay.
We've touched on number 4, and I want to flesh this out. They don't build around an exit plan. And here's what I mean by that. It struck me one day. We look at 12 things, to make sure that you're exiting your business properly. It occurred to me one day that the things that the steps you can take to make your business more valuable to sell one day helps you today. It
Always.
makes your business run better today. And so you never know. Look what happened to me. The phone just rang one day. And, fortunately, I'd been listening to myself and following my own advice.
Right. You were prepared. But a lot of people, it comes knocking and they're not prepared. Their financials are a mess. They've been running their business into the ground because they don't want to pay taxes, which I understand that. But it becomes a problem when somebody looks at your books and records and says, Ryan, you're losing like $300,000, $400,000 a year. You're like, no, I'm not. I'm paying my bills. What are you talking about? But all those hidden costs and things in there that are running through your business.
And, we have to remember that as we discussed, people don't realize they're building equity in this thing. And then they another mistake that they make within that is that they automatically think that one day they're going to put their business up for sale and someone's going to come along and write a check and they're out. That ain't how it works.
Right.
You're going to, look with I'll tell you, when I sold my company, the deal was, and I got lucky. I mean, everything just really worked out, but we had two parts to it. They paid me, we had a figure, right? A bottom line figure. They paid me 90% of that figure. Then there was a stipulation that said, I will get that remaining 10% in 6 months if we don't lose too many of my clients.
Right. It's a retention based.
Exactly right.
Sure.
And so that motivated me to, it sure as hell did, by the way, to maintain contact, help them with the clients, everything else. And so you're going to have different ways of getting out of this. And by the way, you have to think about, well, who might buy this business? Is it going to be my employees? Will it be an outside person? Is it going to go to a family? Then you have to start thinking about the tax ramifications, the exposure to legal issues, like I'm sure you've seen a few thousand times. So selling your business just ain't writing a check and walking out the door.
No, it's very complicated. And other professionals in your business who don't have necessarily transferable books, like my father was in the life insurance business for a long time. A lot of those deals are earnouts where they'll say, listen, we'll buy your book, your client list, but what we're going to do is we're going to pay you whatever, 30, 40% of whatever we earn off the book for the next 3 to 5 years or something like that. Because there's no cash flow, cash stream to transfer. Yeah. You can't do it like in other different parts of the financial business. Yeah.
Keep that in mind. There's a few things you can do to really optimize your business today. It'll make it more valuable for later.
Right. Well, I think that, and I don't really want to harp on the point, but I think that everyone who owns a business or starting a business, I know not everybody, it could be a lifestyle business. That's fine, but you don't want to do it forever. So if you want to get value out of it, you got to start thinking about, how do I build value? How do I pay some taxes? How do I start to run this thing like somebody else could take it over someday, the E-Myth type of thing. So huge.
Number 5, they don't tax plan. When most businesses, when you give your numbers to your CPA or your tax preparer, that person is looking in the rearview mirror. All right. You have to look through the windshield. And there are things that obviously there's a list of things. Now it's a finite list. There's not a million things you can do, but there's a finite list of things that you can do to either mitigate taxes or to redirect those funds so that they can help you build a business while getting tax breaks. Right. So, on my podcast, we do taxes quite often, and because it's such an important thing, and over and over again, I'll get the experts on because taxes make me, nervous, but I'll get a tax person on, and organization is the thing they always talk about. Be organized, because a tax preparer is not a mind reader. All right.
Right. No. They're just going to take your data and put it in, and here's your tax return. This is what you owe. You're like, I owe $250,000 more. Well, can't we find some deductions? They go, okay. Well, I don't have that data.
That's right.
So I get clients call me. Didn't we lose money on that business like 2 years ago? I'm like, yeah. Did you write that off? No, but we have this big gain now. And
that's right.
So then you're dealing with a judgment maybe you have that was uncollectible or whatever happens to do. Why don't we do this? There's 7 things. We're about midway. Why don't we take a break? I got a couple of commercials, and then we'll come back and we'll finish the book and keep going with the conversation.
Good.
Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools, and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Are you struggling with managing advertising due to a lack of time or expertise? Perhaps you're facing challenges in scaling ads for your store. Are you feeling lost when strategies have no success? GSM Growth Agency is your reliable partner in overcoming these business challenges. Feel the impact of collaborating with a team dedicated not only to short-term goals, but also to building long-term partnerships and achieving sustained success. Embark on an exciting journey to redefine the possibilities of e-commerce and create a legacy of unparalleled excellence. Take decisive action now. Follow their link in the show notes to receive a complimentary audit of your Shopify store conducted by a GSM expert. Propel your e-commerce game to new heights with GSM Growth Agency. Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show. Okay, so we were, I think we're up to number five or number six?
Okay, number 5 is mistakes business owners make. They don't prioritize key people. Now, it's, as we know, it's hard to find good people. And we've all had that. We all know what that's like.
Right.
Well, there are a couple of points here. Number one, your best person may be the person who buys your business one day.
Yeah.
Number two, they're going to help you out today if you prioritize them and motivate them and incentivize them to do things. Now, there are ways to do this with some financial plans where you can carve them out and you can motivate them financially.
Not qualified, deferred comp, bonus structures.
That's exactly right.
Restrictive handcuff, things like that, right? Yeah, I do a lot of that.
They give tax advantages to the business owner. And the other thing is, we're going back to now selling the business. When someone comes in to buy your business, one of the things they're going to look at is the and this is one of the 12 we talk about, is the owner the MVP. And what I mean by that is the owner too important to the business? Or do you have a key person or a key group who could run this business if you didn't have to? Well, a buyer of your business is going to want to see that, but also it makes your business run better today if you have people to whom you can give important stuff to work on.
Right. Could you go away for a month and the business could take care of itself? Or 2 weeks, maybe most businesses can survive. A month is a lot.
So,
yeah, I also find that with key people, sometimes there's businesses that are too reliant on like one key person. Like literally, they're like, well, if this person dies, we don't know the codes to anything. And sometimes you need to, and I've seen other business owners do this where they took their key person. They said, listen, we're paying you for the next 2 weeks you get off vacation. Don't call. Don't get involved in anything. We're going to see how we do without you. Like, you got some time. Tell everybody like you're going away or whatever. You're not losing your job. And they actually became more important to the business. They became the president or whatever. And they worked out all the glitches, like if, why this person was handling everything and they shouldn't have been and so forth. They were overworked anyway. But yeah, sometimes you don't realize how much you rely on one person. And then next thing you know, you're hostage to them. They're like, well, I don't need to pay you for this business. I know how to run it. I can start my own.
Exactly right. So how do you incentivize them? Well, there are ways to do that. And in some ways, it's just interpersonal stuff too. But prioritize your key people. And then finally, number 7, and this is related to something we discussed earlier. They don't prioritize communication. I'm not talking about communication with clients or prospects or vendors. I'm talking about intercompany communication. All right. Okay. So how does that manifest? It can be In the book, I call it the feng shui of the business, and that is how does information travel through this business? Where are the bottlenecks? Do people feel like they can communicate with somebody else, or are you siloed out? And I've been in that situation.
Right. Siloed out is a big problem. People don't know what's going on. They're not communicating, and they're not supporting. They're not on the same page. They're not,
There's too much competition.
You got to find your vision. Right. Yeah. Now you're competing internally, let alone externally.
So, and again, and this could also apply to the key person situation. If you're not communicating well with them, maybe they don't understand how much you appreciate them and how much you need them. Well, again, we talked about how, a business owner doesn't build out their skills. Well, this is one of them. And this is something I believe can be learned. And in the podcast, my podcast, I had a guy on, we talked about communication, and he pointed out how simple it is. Just a little sentence here and there can make sense. Right. You say the right thing, and that person's going home and tell their spouse. It's going to make a big difference. So motivate your people with communication, but also remember that poor communication kills. It can kill a business.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in that same regard, leadership is important when it comes to motivating your people and communicating with them properly and empowering them and making them feel like they have ownership in this business and that it's important to them, not just to you. And there's a lot of business owners that are, like, well, this is my place and I don't care if they don't want to work at home. They got to come in. We're going 5 days a week and that's it. And then half of their people quit. They're like, what? Well,
they're not like me.
So,
that's they don't see that. And, that's the thing is, Mitchell, we as business owners, we naturally do things our way and we don't want a lot of input because we have a vision. Well, that's fine. But it can be overdone too. And you have to be able to listen. And they have to, and just as importantly, they have to know that you're listening. So, one of the financial, and this has not really been very financial in nature, but one of the financial things you can do for your people is do a very simple profit sharing so that they are engaged and they do work for the better of the company. And I know it's a cost, but A, you write it off, and B, you do it right, it's going to work.
Yeah, that's also a good time to maybe visit, if you haven't done so, things like non-competes or non-solicitation agreements where, it's not that necessarily the person can, they go start their own business, but they can't steal all the clients of the company and things like that. Or maybe a buy-sell agreement at that time too, where you say, hey, would you be willing to agree, and we can fund this with different products and different things, to be the person who takes over this business, But it's always good to have some consideration when you ask somebody, hey, would you sign this so you don't walk out the door and take all of our clients with you? Because there's a lot of businesses that come to me and said, listen, I'm really nervous. Ryan's been with me a long time. He knows all of our clients. I got to prevent him from stealing, taking our customers. He's going to go out and start his own. Well, what do you have in writing now? Well, nothing. Well, what incentive does Ryan have to do to sign away his rights to take your people? It's, it's life. You're doing business. Well, maybe we could put a package together that makes it better for Ryan to stay and not destroy the business than not, I do a lot of non-qualified planning too. Some of it is expensive. So you're not talking about, new business owners and small companies, but, some of it's using the tax code to carve out, like you said, just for individual people, key personnel. And, it kind of tiptoes around the tax code and uses different treasury rulings and things like that. And
you can. So, what I like about those plans is that there's a cash value there, and that money can be used, tax advantaged at least, to be seed money to buy the company. Right.
Well, that's exactly. That's what you would do. Put insurance in place in case the guy died, but if he didn't, you would have money accumulated.
Exactly right.
So take it over, and then that could be the down payment. You say, listen, we'll put the money away as a down payment, and then you pay us over time to do this.
I'll tell you, I have a client in Denver, and that's what we're doing with them. They found this guy who had no business experience. He did not have a degree in business. He just took to it, and he ran with it. And you know how it is. I don't know. It just worked for him.
Relentless.
And the guy said, the business owner said, this guy, I can't lose this guy. And so we said, well, wait a minute. I said, you're kind of you're going to be selling here before too long. And he goes, yeah. And I said, okay. So we just set it up. We set up an NQDC, non-qualified deferred compensation. The kid is just head over heels loving this because he didn't have to go through all the hassle of starting a business one day. It's sitting there waiting for him. The money is growing there in his account. He's having to pay a little bit extra in taxes, but he knows it's all going to be worth it. And the business owner's winning because he's keeping his guy. It's just, it's a win-win situation.
And he's got the peace of mind of knowing that he's got an exit down the road. I mean, I think that's a big fear of people when they've been running their business for 20, 30 years. They're tired. Maybe they even enjoy their business, but they're like, well, I can't do this forever. And that's when they start thinking like, well, what am I going to do? And it's difficult. I've had businesses go to business brokers and the broker's like, well, we can get a couple $100,000 for this stuff. But what are they buying? If you're a bakery, somebody's buying your bakery, but they don't want to bake what you bake. So what are they buying? Pots and pans and an oven. And I don't know, by the way, that's another thing in my book. I know we didn't get through all of yours yet, but is the lack of properly written partnership agreements. So you're in business, right? With bakery is a good example, right? Because there's all kinds of intangible things. There's recipes, there's pictures of the stuff you made, there's all kinds of things. And I've had several business owners in those types of businesses, food service, where they're breaking up. They don't want to be in business together anymore. And they're arguing over spoons and knives and forks. And it's a mess and a lot of legal fees. And usually that comes down to who has more money to deal with the lawyers. And no leverage, and you lick your wounds and you start over. It's not good. But if they had an agreement that said, listen, if we break up, which is always the part of the agreements that are missing, you read these agreements that are written not by lawyers. They don't include the other side of the agreement, which is what if there's a dispute? How do we resolve it? What if we have to break up? That's really the purpose of the agreement, right? And if they had those in place, they might not be happy either way. But
you can understand that you're all excited about starting this new business with your buddy, and you don't want to broach that subject, but man, you got to do it. You got to just get it done, get it over with, and say, look, this isn't personal.
Prenup for your business, no question about it. Yeah, I mean, look, it raises the question of everybody getting married should have some sort of prenuptial agreement, right? Because it just makes it easier but nobody wants to do that because they're like, well, then we're assuming that we're going to get divorced. That's right. And I'm like, well, yeah, you don't assume that, but if you do, it's going to be pretty much of a mess.
Well, now there's another way to do this. If you want to kind of do this softly, and that is, if you're going to do something like that, include it in a buy-sell agreement where you're talking about if one of us dies, if one of us gets sick, if one of us decides this or that. Yeah. That way, at least, it's not like, if I end up hating your guts, I want out.
Yeah, you can deal with it on a soft side and focus on the other things. And just I do that because I say, listen, there's retirement, there's voluntary retirement. You want to walk away. There's involuntary retirement, you're getting sued, something like that. There's death, there's disability. I guess there's also, if you break the law, we find that you're a drug smuggler, that might bring some ill will on the business. Maybe you gotta leave. Yeah. But people don't think of the crazy situations that happen in life to people that have nothing to do with the business, but destroy the business. Yeah. I mean, you've seen radio programs where it's a radio show and one of the guys gets, he's laundering money. There was a guy on the radio just recently, or up here, where he was arrested for running a Ponzi scheme with the listeners and whatever. It had nothing to do with the show. It had to do with his personality, and he was taking advantage of it. And he went to jail. So they got to get a new guy for the show. So people just don't. They don't think
crazy
what they're doing. Yeah. So where were we? Sorry, I interrupted.
Nope, that's okay. I'll do it very quickly. These 7 are: 1, please stay on top of a business plan, whether it's your new or your established. Number 2 is build out your business owner's skill set. Find out where you're weak and find systems or way to get better. Lean on your business reports. Ask questions on each line item. Build an exit plan because you can help yourself today by doing that. Mm-hmm. Tax plan, look through the windshield instead of the rear view mirror. Prioritize your key people, incentivize them to do even better and stay with you for a long time, and prioritize inter-company communication so that the business doesn't die inside the business. And we've seen that. We've all seen that.
Yeah. And you know how those 7 things are tried and true? Because if you look at my book, if you look at other books, they all overlap.
Yeah.
Like these are all common things. And for anybody listening, I have a template. I'm sure you have materials. If somebody's looking for a basic way to get started, reach out to one of us. I assume that your book's available on Amazon. Yeah. And we'll put links in the show notes to, whatever you want to do, resources for people. But it would really improve the chances of success, which is one of the goals of the podcast, no question about it. From instead of being, 50% over 2 years and probably 80% failure over, 5 years. And that doesn't include the ones that struggle and just make it through that period of time, but are still struggling, right? If they just would do these things, like you can become, it's not hard to find out the things that you said. They can look it up. They'll find your book. They'll find mine. They'll find other resources. It's not difficult. But the difficult is, I think, you give me your opinion. You got right brain, we got left brain. The entrepreneurs love the right brain stuff, right? They love the creative stuff, making your product, doing the marketing, putting together a brochure, getting a website. We're all excited. They stay away from the left brain stuff. And that's where all the traps are. That's where the flags raise up and go, holy shit, we can't charge enough for this product to make any money. Well, maybe we could package it with something else. We could do it off overseas. I've had companies buy things like, let's say, e-commerce sites. They're doing some sort of a drop ship type of a thing, and they're selling something. Then they get a sample. It looks great. They later find out that the guy in China, the company in China, substituted the product and he's sending some crap out to people. And I had a guy doing shoes. They were leather shoes of some sort. And I was just talking to him the other day and discovered the shoes were plastic. Like whatever they were sending wasn't the same thing as the item that they thought they were buying.
Jeez.
And, they lost money.
I guess I'm not shocked.
Well,
and I would add to that,
those are cheap, but you don't have any control.
Right. Those two things that you said, the left brain and the right brain, that is so critical. And then on top of that, there's one more thing, and that is the emotional aspect of momentum, where you've decided you want to start this business. And it's like, when you meet someone new and you find a way to kind of not see all the bad.
It's all emotion, right? It clouds everything.
And you really need to be able to use your left brain and think critically, and say, look, this is a roadblock. This is a problem. I'm going to lose money every time I sell this, and I ain't going to make it up on volume.
Yeah, that's like the biggest myth in business. If you're losing money on one product, you can't make it up in volume. I mean, there are situations where if you're buying 10,000 units, it's going to be cheaper and you will, but that's the Amazon model, right? Let's lose money not everybody's going to make it like Jeff Bezos, right? It's not going to work. It's going to be too long of a runway for you to get up to the point where there is any profit. And by the way, you still have those losses to make up. So it's a combination of profitability and making up for the losses that you had previously. And it's a race you can't run in most cases.
I had a good friend of mine who developed a product for seniors to help them open doors easier. Very, very simple little thing. And he pitched it, and a very large national retailer said yes. Well, it killed him. It killed his business because he wasn't prepared. He didn't have the infrastructure to make a zillion of these things. And he tried he overshot, and he didn't plan it out.
Yeah.
And so, as even growth is dangerous.
Yeah, it is. People, what's the saying? The saying people like, well, those are problems I want to have. No, you don't.
No, it's even more frustrating.
Yeah. It could kill you even more so. Right. Exactly. Well, there's certain things like Bed Bath & Beyond and other chains where you have to have a certain amount of product in a warehouse. You have to have certain levels of insurance, which you might not even be able to get at the beginning. And if they don't sell, they send it back to you and you got to eat it. So you invest in all this stuff and it looks really fantastic, right? I got this national chain or whatever. Well, then you better partner with someone else who's big enough to produce the product and knows that stuff. And,
and that has to be accounted for in those numbers that we're avoiding, because you need to find out what's the typical return rate and plug that sucker in there to the Excel spreadsheet.
They don't even think about that. I mean, Amazon takes back billions of dollars a year in returns. I mean, we buy things all the time. We're like, well, let's buy all 3 of these, and then we'll just pick the one we want and send back the other 2. People do that. That's the Zappos shoe model, right? You'd buy 6 shoes. I think Warby Parker does that too. You buy 6 shoes and then you send back 4. But they got to build it into their pricing.
Exactly right. So, and if it's not in there, if that figure is not in there, then your cost of doing business is going to be lower than it really is, or you're, on your spreadsheet, and then you're in trouble. Yeah.
Right. If you're selling hard products, there's no question you're going to have returns. It's a question of, what's the average, and what, if you have if you have a quality control problem because you're buying it overseas to save money, try and, beat the whole volume thing. Then you got a bigger issue.
Yeah.
So it gets to be crazy. Well, Ryan, I can't thank you enough for coming on. The book is A Business Owner's Guide to Money, right? And what's the best way for people to connect with you, to learn about what you're doing, to maybe hire you for advice?
Sure. And thank you for that. It's The Business Owner's Guide to Money is the podcast. It's also the book. You can go to Alpha 4 Business, alpha, the number 4business.com. And you can also email me at Ryan, RYAN, at alpha4business.com. Nice and simple.
And we'll put that all in the show notes. So I can't thank you enough for joining me today. Stick around. We'll go to credits, and then we'll talk a little bit after off the mic. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinhacker and produced by Beinhacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinhackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.